Should I invite them? No. They are ready. Good. Can you open to Professor Giuliato is here? So we are the two. She is Professor Giuliato, teaching the course of public finance of the system. And the course is split into parts that we will do more or less. I begin and she ends, but we might interchange depending on the topic. We haven't decided yet. And I shall explain later all the details of my part, which is the broad one, giving you the instruments for public intervention in the healthcare system. And here is the notice. And that part, which is related mainly to government, to market failures, and so mainly related to health, shall give you the basic for intervention in the market by part of government. Then we will enter into details later. I don't want to stop Professor Giuliato here for too long time because she's teaching quite short this floor. The second part shall be made by her. And if you want to say something about your bit of course.
Yes, hello. I will start when Professor Fedeli finished her part, and the main, we will touch some topics, some specific topics related to health economics. The first will be global public goods related to health issues. The second one will be on fiscal federalism, because quite a great number of countries has a decentralized structure, and health systems are, in many instances, are under the competences of subnational governments. This type of mask is not is forbidden here. You have to change it right now. Yes, no, without filters are not allowed inside the classrooms. So you have to change it with another mask. Okay? Because this protects you. This protects you that this can be dangerous for the others. So you are not allowed to come here with this type of masks that have filters. Okay? Okay? So please get one and change it. Okay. And the third part will concern the problems of public-private partnerships, so special arrangements that are sometimes employed to build and operate infrastructure, and our focus will be on health structure system, especially. So this is the main content.
This is the main content, and something you are interested in, I think, is related to exam, and it changes. We have decided this morning of changing it with respect to last year. We required students to write an essay on the pandemic plan of the different countries they were from. Well, it didn't work properly, and the results were quite disappointing. So we have decided to go back to the standard way of exam, which consists in an essay, which is strictly related to the program that we are going to do. We shall propose you different titles, and you can choose what you want to do with some readings And you will have also an oral part, which is related to the basics of public finance for health system. So it is divided into two, and you can make the essay even before of the oral part. But when you register for, well, it would clearly be better if you study before, even the basics. But anyway, you can write the essay before, and when we decided the title, and for the exam in particular, you have to register. Well, I am the person in charge for InfoStud. So depending on the date I have scheduled already, you can choose that one you prefer. And in that case, we'll have an agreement because she must be involved, I are involved, and you. And we decided when to listen to you for the other part. And in that case, you have to send us the essay before. Moreover, if you want to have the exam before the standard date, only almost at the end of the course, and independent of the date scheduled in InfoStud, we might agree on the date if you want. Of course, it's not compulsory, that there is an opportunity that, or whether it requires you to study during the course. I think you have anything else
Yes,
to say?
the paper you will be requested to prepare will have to be presented. So the task is twofold. You have both to write it, and it will have a maximum length of 5,000 words, and you will have to present it with a PowerPoint presentation, hopefully in front of the other people. Okay, so it will not be. It's not supposed to be a presentation just to us, but hopefully it will be done during the class hours. Okay.
So you will be evaluated on the essays, which is last year we decided they should be about 5,000 words, but it's very important the presentation too.
We will
for
provide
everybody.
We will provide you with some basic references, and you will have to add something. Okay, so you will have to research additional bibliography to complete the essay. I will provide my references and bibliography when I start the second part of the course.
And in the meantime, we will also decide the titles. Okay. What else? Time office for students, for
How
me.
many students are here? So there are 15 online.
Ma
13.
ammetti.
15 online and
12.
13 e 13 quindi 28. Giusto? Va bene,
Ok,
io me ne vado.
bene, grazie.
Va bene, scusa, non ho cazziato. Ho cazziato un po' schifo con la mascherina del
Io manco sapevo.
No, sono quelle le cosiddette mascherine egoiste.
Ah.
Sono quelle che consentono a loro di filtrare in entrata, ma di buttare tutto fuori in uscita. Se c'è qualcosa, infetta la classe.
No. Vedi?
No.
I didn't realize this. So now you know, in case.
No,
I didn't know.
With filters, please. Okay? Okay, see you. Bye.
Now, I was talking about the time office is formally on Thursday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. all the year. Then, if you need something during the course, you can ask me after the lecture, for instance, or if you meet me in the corridor, whenever you like. And good, for any reason. Okay. Now, she's back. You want some here? There is also already the platform in Moodle, to which I suggest you to register. It's the same of last year, but please register in that with the year, which is 21-22, public health. Now I'm going to stop registration in that of last year, because in case of anything, information or the like, you can find me and vice versa. So I can send you a message for any reason. Netherlands is still waiting. I don't know why. I don't know what to do. On me. Then this is the reading list for the part of my competence. And this is the basic part, which can be of help for the basics, but also for the issues that I intend to propose you for the essay. And in particular, there are 3 chapters, 18, 19, and 23, which are part of the exam. Doesn't count. These 3, and chapter 2 is a part that can be of help in case you are assumed to know at least a bit of microeconomics and a bit of tools for the course. But just in case, you have also chapter 2 that can be of help. Moreover, there is a part that is important, which is this chapter 18, 19, and 23, which are part of the program, are from the book by Folland, Goodman, and Stano, which I like enough, but is possibly not completely good for this kind of course, for 2 different reasons. It is very much market-oriented, and it's possibly it was prepared for Americans, where the basic system is the private one, referring to the market. So it's very much market-oriented. We are in a country and in a continent, by the way, in which the public system, even in the market economies like ours, are much more public-oriented. So, and this course, of course, is public finance. So I had to switch a bit towards different parts most strictly related to government intervention, which are taken by this book, this chapter here, which comes from Francesco Forte, Principle of Public Economics. It's just 1 chapter, and given that this book in English is quite difficult to be found, I don't know, not even know if it is in the library, in spite of that Francesco Forte was teaching in this faculty. But last year someone said that the book is disappeared, so I put this chapter in Moodle. Moreover, I will put all the sketch of the lecture in Moodle. Possibly it is already done and is there. I mean that what I'm presenting here, and not exactly all my picture, but shall be also in the Moodle platform. What else? I've already said about the office hour. And I will start with the sketch of the course, on which shall be considering deep possibly, but now it's a kind of introduction. As I mentioned, well, I haven't mentioned before. I want to ask you a question. Do you think that there is any role for government and the healthcare sector? I don't know where are you from, and I don't know the country. I see you. Possibly you are not of you are Italian, and I think that depending on your country of provenance, you might have a different experience. Where are you from? How many Italian here? Oh, Italian. And then you think?
I'm from Kyrgyz Republic. Kyrgyzstan.
Uganda. What about those online? Are you sleeping?
I'm Italian.
Capanzano, I think, is Italian.
I'm from Iran.
Don't use the. Don't use. I can't see. Please feel free of intervening with your voice. I don't use the chat because it's difficult when I'm presenting. Look at the chat, so intervene whenever you want. And please open the microphone and tell us where are you from.
Can you hear us?
Marco, I think, is Italian.
Yeah, I'm Italian. I am trying to speak. I don't know if you can hear me.
Sorry?
I think
Okay.
Hello, Prof.
Sanam should
Hello,
open
Prof.
the
My name is
microphone
Altunay.
and
I'm from Kyrgyzstan.
us because apparently it doesn't work. No, it should work. Is there anybody that can try to speak, open the microphone and say something, whatever?
Hello, Prof.
Now we can listen to you. So where are you from?
My name is Altunay. I'm from Kyrgyzstan.
Kurdistan. Good.
Kyrgyzstan in Central Asia, near the Kazakhstan, near the China, Kyrgyz Republic.
We know where it is. Sanam.
I'm Italian.
hello. Yes. Hello, I'm from Iran.
Wait, we cannot see you. Who is talking? Who is from Iran?
Sana. I'm from Iran.
Iran.
Yes.
Chiara Martinisi, I think is Italian, but
Yes, I'm Italian.
Angwei Fan,
I'm on China.
China, and An Yicheng,
I'm from China too.
I'm from Albania.
Albania, poi Veronica Nazarova
Hello, Prof. I'm from Russia.
from Russia. Well, so
Hello,
nice to meet you.
Professor.
I cannot see you, but it would be nice to see your face. But
Hello,
I
Professor.
am-
Can you hear me?
yeah, where are you from?
I'm from Iran.
Iran.
Yeah,
How many Iranians?
we are
Last year?
5.
5. Good. Last year only 1.
Yes.
Well, So we would like to see your face, if you don't mind, but just in case. Here you are. Welcome to the courts. Now, do you think there is any role for government in healthcare markets? Because what you will see in the book is something like healthcare is composed by goods and services that can be produced and so exchanged in the market. So can you see any role for government in this situation? Because you possibly know that when we talk about market, the theory is that market work quite good. Well, actually, some economists say that in certain circumstances they work perfectly. So it is a shame to require government intervention in the healthcare system, given that the market can produce something better than others. So is there any role, according to you, for government intervention and healthcare production of goods and services? Do you have an idea? Please consider the fact to intervene all the time that you want. It would be very less boring.
Public intervention can be useful to provide to the healthcare given to the part of the population that has low income.
This is a good point. We will look at it. And we will look at it in that part that is related to redistribution. But any other ideas?
I think that government should not have so much control over any market, but should organize some set of rules that prevent some actors to create a monopoly, an oligopoly, etc. The only intervention that I think is positive is when a good is sensible in a situation, say, like COVID, when masks were a sensible good.
What do you mean by sensible? Because it is that is not
important
by
good.
economists.
I was thinking about some goods that in a certain situation become more important than they were before that situation. So maybe the government can intervene and put a seal in prices, so people can acquire.
So the proposal is related only to some goods, not all health system, and in specific circumstances, which are related to some failure of the markets, like oligopoly or the like, and with something that is called the sensible good. We will specify, it's not a good word, we will specify what my Marco mean with sensible. We will find a different name for specify this situation. And the other idea, well, look, the issue is quite important, because if you think to the amount of government spending, even in those countries where the market for health is the most important, takes the most important share of the system, the health system, like United States, government spending per capita is much higher than the Italian, for instance, where it is public. Of course, you have to sum the federal and the state expenditure, public expenditure for health, but it is quite high. But if you think of the United States, in that case, we have private market working with people required to buy an insurance in order to be covered in case of illness. Another situation which signals the importance of state is that governments are generally deeply involved in production, regulation, financing of a number of goods and services. And what we are looking at is seeing whether there is a rationale for government intervention. And those economies, I'm sorry if I cannot cover all your country possibilities, which are basically market economies, like most of the European countries, United States, most of South American countries, and Canada, Australia, and the like, where in principle we have a market that is a capitalist system where the market works, and the government can differently, depending on different reasons, intervene for healthcare. Now, which are the reasons why government can intervene? Because I start by saying that you are possibly used to listen that the perfect competition gives perfect results. So why do the government should intervene, the public economy should intervene to change something that works perfectly without any help of the government? Well, there are a number of reasons why it can happen, and they enter in what economists like to call market failures, which gives the rationale for government intervention or involvement with the market for health. Well, in this case, that should be quite known to you, as the case of monopoly power of some producer. This is a quite different, interesting point, because we can find more monopolistic power on the side of the firms, even in those cases in which there is no technical reason why the supplier of a given good should have monopolistic power. I mean, independent of the situation in which there is I've now tried something, I don't know if it works. Independent of those situations in which we have natural condition for monopoly, which is the case of natural monopoly, in which technical condition we will see in deep later on in the course. For monopoly, there are some situations like the very simple one that I'm doing here. In which we have a perfectly elastic, competitive supply, this one, supplying in the long run, which is not a characteristic of monopoly, but the monopoly, the producer has the power of deciding the price. Why it can happen? It very often happens, by the way, in the situation in the healthcare markets, for different reasons. Reasons which are related to the fact that market is not as a very small one, so you don't have enough demand for that good, and this gives the monopolist, the producer, the power of choosing the price instead of bargaining it with the consumer. Or it might depend of some form of regulation, like patents, the censor, which are very often important in the healthcare system, because they I consider the sort of mechanism by which government can guarantee the quality of the service, but is in a different, put from a different side, might give to those who are free to enter into this market because they are admitted, because they have the patent, say, to have a kind of power when dealing with the consumers. What happened in this situation? If we were in the standard competitive equilibrium, we would have an equilibrium in this situation where the supply is equal to demand. None of the participants to this market can make the price. And they just meet, and the price and quantity are decided at equilibrium at this point. So this is the competitive quantity, this is the competitive price. What happens in those cases in which the supplier, even in this case, in which we have a perfectly elastic competitive supply function, if the producer has the power of choosing the price or the quantity, what he can do is to choose that quantity that maximizes his profits. So what happens here? We need something, we need the marginal, this is the demand curve. We need the marginal revenue. For the supply, in this case, very specific case, so we need that the average costs are equal to marginal cost. Okay. Now, where is the, how can we find the quantity that maximizes the profit in this situation? Does anybody know? The monopolies that maximize the profit as given by revenue minus cost. Total revenue minus total cost. And you want to find the quantity that maximizes the profit. Can you find in this very simple situation what is the result? Well, look, I give you something that the demand curve represents obviously the willingness to pay of consumers for the good, in question, but also on the other side, the average revenue, potential revenue for the producer. Okay, that means that the area underlying the integral of the demand function is, on the one side, the gross consumer surplus from the consumption of this good, but it also represents the total revenue for the producer, potential, of course, because the real revenue will be found when price is determined. So, given so, if the integral of the demand function is the total revenue, the curve, the green one, that have the same intercept in the vertical axis and a slope twice than the demand curve, is the marginal revenue for the monopolist. Okay, now go back to our problem. We want to maximize our monopolists want to maximize, has the power to choose the price, and having this power, we want to maximize this, the profits. So what you have to do is differentiating total revenue with respect to quantity and total cost, and that means that we have G prime equal to 0 or the first order condition, okay? R prime is the marginal revenue and C prime is the marginal cost. So we have to find a place where I rewrite it in this form with the original. The marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. And in this point here is a field for finding the quantity Qm that maximizes the profit of the monopolist. Moreover, at this quantity, we can also find the price at which the monopolist find people willing to buy the good in the market. And this is, and actually, EM is the monopolist equilibrium, and PM is the monopoly price. Is there any of you that can see what is the kind of problem that we have in all those cases in which, independent of any condition, we have the suppliers in the position of choosing a price equal to PM that maximize the profit. Sorry, what is the profit? The profit is given by the difference between total revenue and total cost. At the quantity QM that maximize profit, total revenue is given by this area bordered in black, okay? Whereas total cost is given by the average cost, which is colored, times the quantity. So is there a border in this strange color that I don't like? I change it. So the rectangle PCAEMPM is the extra profit of the monopolist, which is something that we don't like in principle, because when the economists consider the cost curve, that curve contains, englobates all the cost of the firm, including the salaries, the reimbursement for monopolists, for everybody. So all the costs have been paid, including the remuneration of the supplier. So this area, PCA, AMPM, is not justified by economic reason, but only by the power that monopolists can have in the market. Moreover, what is the disadvantage? Well, on the supply side, we have an advantage for one person who has the power of making the price, but we have disadvantage for consumers. And the disadvantage is given by the fact that if we fix the quantity to QM, which is the monopoly quantity imposed to this market, we leave outside, with respect to the competitive quantity, a good share of consumers that are not willing to pay a price like PM. So it means that all those people that are in this portion of the demand curve are outside the market. It is a problem if we think of the kind of goods and services that we are considering. And when this situation happens, well, we will see, I think, in a couple of lectures, the heavy situation to be regulated by the government by definition, because it's the case of natural monopoly. But this situation of exploitation of monopoly power affects also those cases in which the power is due to different form of laws or regulation like licensor law or all those laws regulating the market that, regulating the entry to some professions, like in Italy, dental services, for instance, are strictly regulated by licensor law, that you want to have the person that take care of your teeth and just be registered and recognized by the market. Why this is strongly required in the healthcare market? Because the reason is that in this way, there is at least a sort of guarantee that those who enter in this market for the supply of some good or services are in a certain way qualified, because, for instance, to become a dentist and to be registered, there you must have a certain degree, a certain specialization, and you have to pass an exam. And this makes a difference with respect to the situation in which anybody can be freely operated in your mouth.
Can I ask a question, Professor?
Sorry?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Can we consider those things that are you saying, like a proper market barrier in entrance for all intents and purposes?
I didn't get what you said about the purposes. Which purposes?
No, purposes, I mean, for can we consider those things that are you saying before, like proper barrier of entrance in the market?
Yes, they are exactly barrier to entry, because in order to guarantee quality, what the government is regulating is the entry into the market. So you cannot be general practitioner if you don't have the degrees, the qualification that is required by the government. Exactly that. This is, but from an economic point of view, if you think of a standard competitive market, this poses a limit, and it might give inefficient result. Another situation in which monopoly power can be exercised is that, as I mentioned before, is the case of small market. This is very important for us because, as you possibly know, if you consider in principle the different planning program for health, you can broadly separate two issues. You might want to offer a service to all the population and to be strictly closer to each of them in the population, which means a capillary service spread all over the country. This is a way for providing the goods. And it might mean that independent of territorial reasoning or density of the population, you are required to provide not only the general practitioner, but also hospital to everybody, which means in general, even in Italy, where the density of the population is quite high with respect if compared to the United States, it means that you should have a small hospital almost for each municipality. And this is a way of producing health for people.
Does this lack of simplicity may bring like dental tourism and more often medical tourism?
Can you repeat, please? Because I didn't.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Not very well, but I don't know, you should shout. Try to shout.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Now it's better because the volume was low.
No, I meant like, does this lack of simplicity brings medical tourism, like customers going to another place to take, like, for example, you mentioned dental services.
Dental services are not a type of tourism because you can choose for different, generally, for instance, if you think of Italy, where are you from? I cannot see.
Albania.
If you think of Italy, you can, in most cases, you have to pay for dental services. And in principle, you can choose where you can go. And when we refer to health tourism, we refer to those cases in which are in general where economic issues are involved with ethical issues. So there is a law that does not allow to have some prescription in Italy, and you go abroad because it's very easy to do it in London. It happens in Italy. It happens for abortion, for instance, long time ago, before the law. Well, it happens in different way because those rich who want to make abortion had the possibility to go abroad and have it in the best situation, possibly in hospital. And those who could not afford this situation should find the solution that they could. Generally very dangerous. In this case, we talk of tourism for health. And in general, it is related to ethical issue because the given country you are considering is not, in principle, allowed to give you that service because there is a law that doesn't want it. The situation you are talking about, the dentist, is a kind of competition because this is, at least in Italy, is the private market. You have to pay and choose where to go.
Yeah,
and there is a different kind of competition at the opposite sides because East countries, this is quite interesting. I know of it, but I haven't studied it very well. For instance, those quite developed countries like Italy, where dental surgery is quite expensive. In most cases, uses East countries for dental surgeries and goes to Albania, Ukraine, Russia, which are less expensive and have a quite similar standard of quality. I wouldn't say it's tourism, but possibly it can be called like this in newspapers. Did I answer to your question?
Yeah.
Ongwei, sorry, I cannot read the name without the glasses. But that is a case, is a standard case of competition. You have to choose. You are in the market and choose. You are moving and go wherever you want.
But doesn't these two co-live together? Like, since we live in a world of globalization, like, doesn't they live together? Like the competition, but also, like, for instance, like in this example, the medical tourism, because they are choosing another country, like.
Well, I would answer it. This is not tourism. This is competition. It's not a tourism. You are not linked in a global market to stay in a given country. You can move. Well, in the past, possibly the size of a country was enough to define the size of the market, but now it doesn't work like this. And people move very easily. And mobility is one of the conditions of competition. You can choose whatever you want. Perfect competition does not pose limits to movement, otherwise it doesn't work. So this is competition. That is why I distinguish situation in which you move for tourism going in a different country simply because you don't have the law for having this in your country, the same service into your country. It also applies to financial market, and Italy again, as for the financial market, is was considered up to 10 years ago not very advanced in supplying financial services. The stock market was not so well developed, and those investors in the financial market wanted to make serious investment. I used to go in different markets like New York, London, and the like. But this was a case of the incompleteness of the Italian market with respect to the others. It was not a tourist. Any other question on it? Any question? Good. So we will go back anyway on monopoly power of firms, mainly considering those cases in which the problem of monopoly is given by natural technical condition, which means that we shall consider those cases in which natural monopoly exists, and it is characterized by a cost curve which is decreasing in the relevant part of the demand curve. We will be back on it later in the course because it is a strong cause of market failure. And going back to other reason why government should intervene, the other issue quite important that we shall afford is related to pure public goods, not to be confused with public provision of goods. What do you understand when I say public goods? It's not a rhetoric question, please answer.
Unexcludable in private goods.
Good. Any other, and what do you understand with, I say, public provision of goods? What is the difference?
It can be a competitive good that is provisioned by a government, so it is public, but it's not a public good in essence.
Now, the two issues have been captured more or less by this answer. The first point was taken by Casey Basho. What's your name?
Yeah, Casey, but I don't, I
What
didn't.
is your name?
Casey.
Ah, no, sorry, it was Bright Baidu.
Okay.
That was what
No, it's okay.
is moving. Bright Baidu. Baidu is from
I'm from Ghana.
Ghana. Are you in Ghana now or in Rome?
I'm in Germany.
Ah, very international, that's very good. So go back to pure public goods. There are two features that we shall consider in deep that characterize those goods that we shall define pure public good as opposed to pure private goods. The pure private goods are those that you normally exchange in the market and for which the market works quite properly. And they are characterized by two important conditions: rivalry and excludability. What does it mean? A good individual are rival to each other when if one of those and go to the market, buy all the goods in that, all that good in the market, I leave no other possibility to the others to consume that good. And of course, this might be the case because if the good is sold in the market, it means that there are scarce resources for that good. Okay. And the second condition is excludability. Well, apart from economic crime, which now we exclude, those people who do not pay are not allowed to consume that good. Consider, okay? There are some goods for which this situation doesn't work, in that individuals are no rival amongst each other in the consumption of the good, in that the level of the good supplied to the community is unaffected by the quantity consumed by each individual, and it is that quantity supplied is potentially allowed in full for all the individual under the benefits area of that goods. Okay. The second situation, the second condition is non-rivalry. In this situation, the case of public goods, pure public goods, cannot exclude those who do not pay the price for the consumption of the good. Well, an example can be in the area of benefit fallout, the public light of a town. So possibly all people are interested in having their town lighted at night, but you cannot check and ask for a price for it. So if the municipality asks you for paying for the light at night of Rome, you might say, well, no, I'm not interested, I don't want it, or whatever. Even if you know exactly that that good is supplied and then paid, financed by the municipality. Moreover, public illumination also meets the condition of non-rivalry. The fact that someone stays below the lamp, illuminating his town and reading his book at night does not affect the consumption of the illumination at night of Rome. So there is no rivalry. This situation is quite important because of the fact that, well, the demand curve, the individual demand curve is almost the same, almost the same shape or everybody, but the aggregate demand doesn't work exactly like a pure private good. Now, consider this case. This is the demand for Apple, okay? And this is the demand of subject A, and this is the demand of subject B. If I want to know the demand, the aggregate demand in this market, we are talking about Apple, what should I do? How do you know how do the aggregate demand for public private goods is obtained? How? As a question, not rhetoric. How do you aggregate the DA and DB in this picture? These are simple apples. And you are the producer that wants to go in the market and want to know how many apples in this. With some how. Well, we'll see it in deep. Filippo Giuliano. We'll see it in deep, but here, at the moment, just remind that we have to aggregate the two demand curve horizontally in order to see the aggregate demand, because we want to know the quantity, and this, given that this In this case, individuals are rival to each other. We need to know the exact quantity demanded in this market. How do you do it? Well, you fix a price, say P equal to 0, and sum. We have only two demand curves. We sum the quantity of P equals 0 for individual R and for individual P. So what you are required to do? Take a price. A simple one is 0, and look at the quantity demanded at that price. This is the quantity for subject A, and the red line is the quantity for subject B. You assume there's 2, and you go more or less in this point. In order to have the aggregate demand, you need another point. We have 2 subjects. So we take a simple one, simple price, take P with the up. In this case, for this price, the quantity demanded by subject A is 0, and the quantity demanded by subject B is equal to Q at B. So you sum 0 to Q at B, and you get the second point in the demand curve. Just joining the line, you have the aggregate demand, where in this case, for price over price at, the aggregate demand is the same as that of subject B, because the other individual doesn't want any apple for price higher than P up. So this is the aggregate demand for a private good. What happens if I want to know the demand of a pure public good that for which no rivalry and non-excludability work? Any idea? Take again a situation in which we have two demands. And this is the demand of individual A and individual B for defense. Defense is a different, is another important kind of good with some characteristics typical of pure public goods. So if I want to know the aggregate demand of these two subjects in the market for defense, what should I look at? Does anybody know the aggregate demand of pure public goods?
Can you please repeat the question? I didn't hear so well.
We are in the situation of pure public goods. And I know that I have two people, A and B, with different tastes about defense or whatever, public goods, pure public goods, for which non-excludability and non-rivalry apply. And we want to know the aggregate demand of this collectivity formed by only two people that wants a pure public goods. You know, what makes the difference in this case is that no rivalry means that once the good is supplied to people, they can consume it in full as it is given by the production condition. Okay. So what does it mean when aggregating? We will see it in deeper later on in the course, but it means that the aggregate demand is not aggregated horizontally by quantity, but vertically, depending of the willingness to pay of individual. In this case, if I want the aggregate demand of defense of this collectivity formed by two people, A and B, what I have to do as before, no, not exactly as before, in a different way, I have to sum up the demand curve, but now I have to sum up their prices, which means that I fix a quantity, simple quantity, say Q equal to 0. This is very simple because I can find the willingness to pay when the quantity is equal to 0 for individual A, which is this point, PA for Q equal to 0, and the same occurs for B when quantity is equal to 0. And I sum up these two prices in order to find the aggregate demand. And it means that I sum this willingness to pay of B and this, which is the willingness to pay of A. I go here, which is PA plus PB. And Q is equal to 0. I don't know, this is not enough. I have only 1 point in the aggregate demand curve. I want another one because I have only 2 individuals. So I fix another easy quantity, say Q up, in which case individual A is not willing, it doesn't want to pay anything for having a quantity like Q up. So the price for A is 0, but the price for B is still positive. So this is the price of B, to which I sum up 0 and say here, and so we have the aggregate demand curve for a pure public goods in this market, where the remaining part for quantity higher than Q at the demand for B is the only one that works. Now, why this is important, and in which cases we can find in the health system, we can find the situation of pure public goods. Do you have an idea of it? Because this is very important. It's a different way of treating the demand and also treating the equilibrium, which is absolutely different. We will see why, but I just give you an idea, assuming that the cost is given by this cost. This is the cost function. I find the supply, I find the equilibrium where the supply is equal to aggregate demand, so at this point. And what happens in equilibrium is that the quantity, the equilibrium quantity is QE, which is the quantity that both A and B are allowed to consume in this market. Moreover, we don't have one price to make an equilibrium result because of the problem of non-excludability. Think of the example of public illumination. You cannot exclude who doesn't pay. And so we have a problem of how to finance this good in the market. And this makes a problem in all those cases in which the goods has its features. We have to find a way to make the market work. Well, how much the issue of pure public goods, on which we will enter in deep very soon in the next lecture, affects healthcare market? Can you see, thinking of your experience, what healthcare system of any kind, private or public, goods or services, which have exactly this feature of non-excludability or non-rivalry? that makes this qualification of goods important? Do you have an idea? Or can you think of any good health good or health service that might be affected by this issue? Or are healthcare services public goods?
The only pure public good that I can think of is where in a public environment, the health system purify the air and sterilize the environment. But this is a limited situation. I can't think any
But
other.
I cannot see the characteristics that I just mentioned. Primary illness, non-rivalry, and non-excludability.
I
are
was
in a
thinking
closet
about the
situation.
limitation of air pollution and set limits. So if the
Pollution is considered an externality, but can be regulated in that case, and it doesn't work neither of the condition for public goods, because everybody can be excluded if there is a limit on the space. So you can live outside, those who doesn't pay the price for clean air. And
with the war, I think like the protection, the public protection, maybe like is
protection of what? What do you mean with protection?
The defense, the protection that is like by the government and all the people.
I have already mentioned the defense, but I was asking you examples related to healthcare. Can you see an example? We are in a court of health, so you have to find if this is an important issue, and it is, I think, an important issue that you have to study because of the courts. There must be something that is related to it. Can you see any example of pure public goods?
Assistance.
For which,
the assistance.
What do you mean by assistance?
Like LEA, LAI that we have in Italy. Or not?
But there are, this is a good point. It's not assistance per se, that is a pure public good. But we are going back to the redistributive issue that we want. And but why it is so, and this is important. Because in most cases, well, look, if you look at the budget of government in the Italian system, where the health is almost totally public, it's very difficult that you find a specific good which can be put in the category of pure public goods. Not even vaccination for pandemic, which possibly you have listened to television or news or read in newspaper that most politicians call the pure public goods that must be given for free. Why not? Because technically it is a pure private good, because you can sell the vaccination, I mean the injection, the substance that must be injected. You can sell it in pharmacy at a price, and you can exclude someone who doesn't buy. So what is the problem in this situation is that in some cases, you can look at the private side of the coin for health. People who are willing to buy for vaccination, and know how many Novax are in the class? That's not a problem.
What?
No, you are not Novax, you are vaccinated, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But in case there are Novax, the example was, in any case, it's not a critics. Well, I might critic deeply, but not in this case. Anyway, from the point of view of the individual who want to be protected with contagious disease, whatever kind, is very happy to go in the market, buy the medicine, injecting it, and it's safe. What happens if it doesn't do it? The point is that, for instance, in all those cases of contagious disease, it becomes a problem for the others. So the event of non-vaccinated individual becomes a problem for the public health of the other, which is the reason why vaccination is overly considered up to having a kind of herd effect. Is overly considered kind of, I would say, in the case of pandemic, global public goods, because the effect, the negative effect on others prevails on the positive effect on the individual. Because this is not a situation in which you can say, well, if you want to die, I don't care. But the point is that you are infected. The transmissible disease affects the health of others. So it might be a good point to impose or consider, even globally, this as a public good. It's the same reasoning. We will be back to it because it is a very important issue for health. And it also affects those cases of merit good. And the example was a similar example, a similar reasoning was also for what I don't remember who called assistance. It's not assistance in general. She referred particularly to essential level of assistance. Essential level of assistance are those basic health instruments that prevent the population of the basic from the basic disease that can be contagious and must be guaranteed that, for instance, in Italy, but also in the United States, if you have some problem, you might go to the emergency. You can go there, then you stop. They solve the specific problem. If you don't have the insurance, so you don't go on in the queue. It doesn't happen in Italy. But a basic level of assistance for redistribution is not for redistributive purposes. It's not only an advantage given to poor people because they are poor and sorry with them. No, it's also a matter of national security or in terms of health plan, of plans for health. But there is another important point that affects the health system and is related to pure public good, which is the problem of information. As you know, possibly in the competitive market, all individual producer and consumer are perfectly informed. In the health market, we have a number of individuals. Well, in most cases, we have individuals who are well informed. Some other are not. This situation is not even balanced between producer of supply, producer of healthcare services and consumer of healthcare services. But the problem is also very important for all that part of the healthcare industry, which are strictly related to the system. So, for instance, think of the information and which is at the basis of the research for pharmaceutical industry. And look at the fact that the information and sharing information as still having on solving the problem of pandemic with respect to years ago, for instance. So the information either on the side of consumers who might be more or less informed. They are generally less informed than the practitioner about the power of a cure with respect to another. But for instance, in the market, in the private market for health, when you buy an insurance, you are much more informed of your disease or what everything can affect the price you pay for insurance. So we have problem of asymmetry asymmetric information. In most cases, we have problem of symmetric information, but uncertainty. And the case of the pandemic has shown the importance of the relevance of uncertainty in dealing with a new virus, managing the new virus. And what else? Well, we will go back to it. I would like to arrive to at least a point. And another point important, because we are almost at the end, is externality, for which sometimes government intervention is required. You possibly already know externality, which can be positive or negative, and can go from producer to consumer, or from consumer to producer, or from consumer to consumer and producer to producer. And are those situations in which there is an action from an economic agent in the market, which is not internalized into the price system. So it is outside, it is external to the vector of price, of equilibrium prices. This is the meaning of externality. But the fact that it is not captured by the market system doesn't mean that it's not economically relevant. For instance, you know a number of positive or negative externalities like pollution that can go from supplier, the polluter, to another supplier who is damaged in its own production or something else, or to consumers that want fresh air instead of contaminated air and the like. And the issue of externality is very important, but we have to consider it properly in the health system, because it affects a new branch that you possibly haven't had before, which is called economics of bats, that we will study. Bats is the opposite of goods. What is bats? It's something that I consume on purpose. I know that it is bad for my health, for everything, but I still want it, and for any reason. And it is the opposite of also what we call merit good, for which we require government intervention, that we will see. For instance, merit goods are, for example, we will enter in details into both these issues, are those related to superior goods like knowledge as a merit good, but also prevention in health is a merit good. And the opposite bats are those goods like junk food, alcohol, drugs, gaming, all those goods that give addiction from consumer, but and which is almost striking in the standard economic system, the fact that imagine the situation in which you have consumers fully informed, maximizing their utility, and they know everything about what the market offers to them, but they still use cigarette. I'm an example of a consumer of pads or alcohol in a size which is not healthy, or junk food, which is becoming a problem. So a big problem the OECD is suggesting to the country belonging to it, policies against junk food, given that in particular young people, children now are affected by obesity, and this means signals future cardiovascular blood pressure problems that in a way put pressure on the health system. So we shall consider also these cases. And I will tell you how to consider them. We don't talk today because I have a meeting in a few minutes, so we shall not talk today, not even in general, of form of government intervention. I just want to, in a way, I already mentioned, other rationale for government intervention are those related to Meritcode and incomplete market that we shall consider at the next lecture, and are reconducted to forms of market failure related to the demand of consumer that doesn't work properly, or at least not properly as we would expect from a perfectly rational, informed individual. Okay, we shall continue from form of government intervention on Thursday, and in case you have any question, please contact me. You have my mail, and do you like this form that I continue for 1 hour and a half and stop, so you have a quarter of an hour first and a quarter of an hour later, or do you prefer a split in between and 45 minutes and then a pause and then 45 minutes? You are a smoker, vero? Because generally, I'm a smoker, and in other courts, of course, I have the split, the cigarette. But, well, you decide. Next time at 1/4.